Welcome back to Inherited Dawn, your weekly dive into the Grand Line. We're on a chapter this week titled, 3 Can't Do It.
And that title is a perfect, almost chilling summary of the problem, because for the first time, the crew is facing an enemy they can't punch, can't outsmart, and can't run from.
Exactly. It's an internal threat, and it's taken down their single most essential member. We're talking about Nami and the monster trio's complete inability to understand what's happening to her.
It's a terrifyingly human moment in a superhuman story. The strongest people in the world are rendered completely helpless by a common fever.
And if you want to be here every single week as we watch this crew get forged in the fires of the Grand Line, make sure your log post is set to our subscribe button. We'll make sure you never lose your way.
Let's get into it, because the story kicks off on the going merry, and the mood is anything but.
Yeah, it's grim right from the jump. The scene is set perfectly. You don't even need dialogue at first. You just see Nami laid out in the women's quarters, drenched in sweat, breathing heavily. You can just feel the oppressive heat and humidity in that room.
It's a stark contrast to her usual energetic, commanding presence. We're used to seeing her yelling at the boys or confidently charting a course. Here, she's completely vulnerable, and it's deeply unsettling.
And Sanji is in a total panic. He's there with a wet cloth trying to take care of her, and you can just feel his frustration boiling over. He's a cook. He's a world-class fighter. He's a protector. But none of his skills apply here. He can't kick a fever in the face. He can't cook at a meal that will make it go away. He's been stripped of all his tools.
It's a direct assault on his entire identity. Sanji's chivalry is an active thing. He protects women by intercepting attacks, by providing for them. This is a passive threat, an enemy from within, and he has no framework for dealing with it. You see him trying to do something, anything, but it's just the basic fumbling attempts of a person who is completely out of their depth.
For sure. And Vivi is the voice of reason. She immediately recognizes the symptoms are more severe than just getting a bit seasick. She uses the term climate sickness, which is such a fantastic piece of Grand Line world building.
It makes it clear that the environment itself is a danger. The Grand Line isn't just a treacherous sea because of the monsters or the pirates. The very atmosphere is an antagonist. They've gone from the tropical climate of Whiskey Peak to the prehistoric jungle of Little Garden, and now they're on the open sea between them. Vivi, who has traveled these waters before, understands that such rapid, drastic environmental shifts can be physically traumatic.
It's like taking a car engine from a desert and immediately plunging it into an Arctic freeze. The system shock would be immense, and that's what's happening to Nami's body. The Grand Line is actively trying to break them, and it found the one person whose body wasn't superhumanly resilient enough to just shrug it off.
So Vivi does the logical, sensible thing that any person would do in this situation. She asks if there's anyone on board with medical knowledge, a doctor. And in one of the most perfectly hilarious and horrifying moments in early One Piece, everyone just points. Luffy, Sanji, Usopp, Zoro, they all just point directly at the bed. At Nami, the person who is unconscious with a raging fever, is the crew's doctor.
That moment is genius. It's a moment of pure comedy built on a foundation of absolute terror. Vivi's face is one of dawning horror as she realizes the truth. These people, this powerful, chaotic force she has aligned herself with, has been sailing the most dangerous sea in the world without a medic.
It speaks volumes about Luffy's philosophy as a captain up to this point. He recruits based on immediate, tangible needs he can understand. He needed a navigator to not get lost. He needed a cook to not starve. He needed a sniper for combat. The idea of preparing for a contingency, for a moment when one of them might be wounded or fall ill beyond a simple bandage, has literally never occurred to him. He operates entirely in the present.
And right on cue, Luffy, bless his simple, beautiful heart, comes in with the most predictable Luffy solution imaginable. Meat. He just storms into the room, a giant chunk of cooked meat in his hand, and insists that if Nami just eats this, she'll be fine.
I mean, he's not entirely right from his perspective. It's his solution to his problems. We've seen it time and again. After a brutal fight, when he's completely exhausted and beaten down, a good meal is what gets him back on his feet. For his rubber body that burns calories at a ridiculous rate, food is a kind of medicine.
It's his universal solvent. Tired, meat. Sad, meat. Just got your butt kicked by crocodile in the middle of a desert? Meat. He's applying his own biological cheat code to a normal human being, and he can't understand why it's not working.
For sure, but Sanji has to be the one to gently but firmly explain that while a nutritious meal is good, it's not a cure for a severe illness. And then, in the middle of this high-stakes medical drama, he drops this amazing little character detail.
He says he puts way more effort into preparing Nami's and Vivi's food than he does for any of the men. And it's played for a laugh, because Luffy and Usopp are immediately like, what? But it's so much more than that. It's about how Sanji shows he cares. It's not just about flirting with Nami, it's about genuine care through nourishment. He uses his craft, his cooking, as his primary tool for protecting and providing for his crew. For him, the quality of a meal is a direct expression of the value he places on the person eating it.
It's his love language. He can't express his deep, platonic care for the men on the crew directly. His pride gets in the way, so he feeds them. But for the women, he allows himself that extra layer of overt care. And Luffy's lack of jealousy is also key there. There's no rivalry. He's momentarily shocked, but his only real thought is that the food is good regardless. It's that beautiful, simple trust they have. There's no ego.
But that little moment of levity just gets crushed, because Vivi, ever the pragmatist, has found a thermometer and she checks Nami's temperature again.
And she announces the number. 40 degrees Celsius. Franky, that's 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That is a legitimately dangerous hospital visit immediately kind of fever. This isn't just under the weather. This is her body losing the fight.
The mood just plummets. The humor evaporates. That number hangs in the air, and suddenly this is deadly serious. Usopp, trying to be helpful, suggests they just find a doctor in Arabasta. But Vivi, her voice filled with dread, points out that's still a whole week away. They don't have a week. They might not even have a few days.
And this is where things take a turn from worrying to just profoundly bizarre and deeply revealing. Luffy, with the complete sincerity of a child, asks what it's like to be sick.
He has no frame of reference. He is genuinely, curiously asking for a description of a fundamental human experience that he has never had. And the craziest part is, neither do Sanji or Usopp. They all just pipe up. Yeah, I've never been sick before. They're not bragging. They genuinely do not know what a fever feels like.
Okay, but think about what this says about their worldview. It's such a foundational piece of who they are that we're only really seeing now. These guys are so inhumanly resilient. Their vitality is so off the charts that their bodies have never once failed them due to a common illness. Not a cold, not the flu, nothing.
It explains so much about their recklessness. It explains why they can take the beatings they do and get back up. They only understand being taken down by an external force, a punch, a sword, a cannonball, an enemy you can see and fight. The idea that their own body, their own internal system could just stop working, that it could betray them, it's completely alien to them.
Think of their histories. Luffy grew up in a harsh jungle environment, so his immune system must be made of iron. Sanji survived near starvation on a barren rock. His body's survival instinct is honed to a razor's edge. Usopp is the most surprising of the three, but he spent his childhood running, shouting, and living a very active, if dramatic, life. They are just built differently.
They're thoroughbreds. They're bred for this life. But Nami, for all her strength and willpower, has the constitution of a normal person. And Vivi is justifiably shocked. She's a princess. She grew up in a palace surrounded by normal people. She has to be the one to translate this basic human vulnerability for them, to bring them back down to earth from their shonen protagonist stratosphere.
And she doesn't pull any punches. She doesn't soften the blow. She looks them dead in the eye and says a fever that high is incredibly painful. It's agonizing, and Nami could die.
That's the trigger. The D word, die. It's the only concept in this whole scenario that they can actually grasp.
And the entire crew just breaks. All that bravado, all that superhuman strength, it just evaporates. They go into full-on headless chicken panic mode, running in circles, screaming. Luffy is stretching his face out in horror. Sanji is just a mess. They have absolutely no idea what to do.
It's such a crucial moment for them. They've faced down warlords, marine captains, and giants, but they are completely, utterly defeated by a microbe. It shows that for all their power, for all their ambition, they're still so vulnerable. Their greatest strength, their small, tight-knit crew, is also their greatest weakness. If one piece breaks, the whole machine grinds to a halt.
And it's this moment that solidifies their need for a doctor. It's not just about patching up battle wounds. It's about having someone who can combat these invisible enemies, someone who understands the frailties they themselves don't possess.
And right in the middle of their panic, a weak voice cuts through the chaos. It's Nami. She's awake. Somehow.
But she isn't asking for water or a cold cloth or help. She's pointing a trembling finger at a newspaper that Usopp and Vivi were looking at earlier.
Even half delirious, burning up with a fever that would put most people in a coma, her mind is on the mission, on Vivi. That is just Nami to her core. She's always thinking 10 steps ahead, always carrying the weight of the plan, the logistics, the reality of their situation.
Vivi reads the paper, and the news is grim. The rebellion in Arabasta, which they're racing to prevent, is escalating. It looks like soldiers are defecting to the rebel side. The Cold War that Crocodile has been orchestrating is about to turn hot.
So the clock is ticking even faster now. They have to get to Arabasta, and they have to get there now. And Nami's reaction is to just force herself up. Using the wall for support, she tells everyone she's fine and that they need to keep going to Arabasta. She's literally trying to will the sickness away.
This is a direct parallel to her behavior during the Arlong Park arc. Her instinct when faced with an overwhelming problem is to shoulder the entire burden herself, to lie and pretend she's okay for the sake of others, even when she is physically and emotionally collapsing.
She's their brain, and she knows it. If she's down, the whole operation is down. So she stumbles out onto the deck to take her post at the helm because she knows with absolute certainty that nobody else can do it. And she finds out who was left in charge of navigation while she was out.
Of course, it was Zoro.
And Zoro's brilliant navigational strategy, his grand plan for crossing the most unpredictable sea in the world, he was following a cloud. Just one, single cloud. His reasoning was basically that it looked like it was going in the right direction.
You can't even be mad. It's so perfectly fundamentally Zoro. He operates on instinct and straight lines. To him, the objective is to go forward. He picked a forward marker in the sky and aimed the boat at it. No charts, no compass, no thoughts, just pure, unadulterated direction.
But Nami, with 104-degree fever swaying on her feet, takes one look at the sky, at the feel of the wind on her skin, at the movement of the sea, and immediately knows they're in the wrong place. She doesn't even consult a map. She just feels it in her bones.
Head portside, to the south, she tells them. It's an order, delivered with the last ounce of her strength. And they listen without question. Luffy even tries to check her temperature with his hand and gets burned by how hot her skin is, but she just brushes it off.
Her will is just unbelievable. It's genuinely monstrous in its own right. She's trying to drag the entire crew toward their goal with sheer determination. Vivi sees this display and she's torn. She's desperate to save her country, so she pleads with them to just listen to Nami and get to Arabasta as fast as possible.
But before they can even process that plea, the reason for Nami's sudden instinctual course correction becomes terrifyingly clear.
A cyclone. A massive, swirling Grand Line cyclone, which are notoriously unpredictable, forms exactly in the path they were just on, the path Zoro's cloud was leading them down. If Nami hadn't woken up at that exact moment, they'd be at the bottom of the ocean. The Going Merry would have been splintered into 1,000 pieces.
Vivi is completely in awe. She's speechless. And she says something that is so critical to understanding Nami's character. She says it's like Nami can feel the weather with her body. This isn't just skill. It's not just knowledge from books or reading a chart. It's a primal, instinctual connection to the atmosphere.
This is the moment Nami is elevated from great navigator to something almost supernatural. It's the first real hint of what she truly is. She is to the weather what Luffy is to fighting, or what Sanji is to cooking. It's a part of her soul. She doesn't just predict the weather, she understands it on a level that defies logic. She saved all their lives while half unconscious.
And this is what makes Vivi change her mind. She has a moment of true clarity, a real leadership moment. She sees Nami collapse after giving the order, finally succumbing to the fever, and she understands. The fastest way to Arabasta is not to push forward with a dying navigator who has to wake from a delirium to save them from minute-to-minute disasters.
Right. The fastest way is to get Nami treated, to get their single most important, irreplaceable asset back to 100%. Because without her, they can't go anywhere. They'd be dead in a day. It's a smart, compassionate, and tactical decision all in one. It's the moment Vivi truly becomes a Straw Hat in spirit.
So they change course. The new priority, overriding everything else, is finding an island, any island, with a doctor. The mission to save an entire kingdom is now officially secondary to the mission to save Nami.
Which is how it should be. It's the core ethos of this crew. You save your own first. The crew comes first. Always.
The story then jumps ahead a day. They're sailing, desperately searching for any sign of land, and Zoro is on watch in the crow's nest.
And he just sees something weird on the horizon. And for once, it's not him being lost and seeing something that isn't there.
He spots a figure in the distance, and he describes it as a man standing on top of the water.
Not on a boat, not on a raft, not swimming, not standing on a sea king, just standing on the surface of the ocean. It's such a quiet, creepy, and bizarre image to end on. After all the high-energy panic and the spectacle of the cyclone, we get this silent, surreal mystery.
It's the perfect hook. We've just left the age of dinosaurs on Little Garden, a story of giants and explosive stakes. Now we're entering what is clearly the Drum Island arc, and this is our first taste of it. Something unnatural, something that breaks the rules of the world as we know them.
He's a master at that. He'll give you this high-stakes, emotional, internal conflict with Nami's sickness, something deeply relatable and human, and then pivot to this external, surreal mystery. The Grand Line never, ever lets you get comfortable or lets you think you understand its rules.
And it immediately raises the question, is this person friend or foe? A threat or the key to finding the doctor they so desperately need? In the Grand Line, something so strange is rarely a good sign.
It just feels like we're sailing towards a big fight. It makes me think this new arc won't just be a simple, peaceful hospital visit for Nami.
Nothing in One Piece ever is. They're looking for a doctor, but I have a feeling they're about to find a whole lot of trouble first. This man standing on the water feels like the gatekeeper to that trouble.
I have no doubt. The tension is already ratcheting up. They've escaped one impossible threat, the cyclone, only to sail directly into another, the unknown.
If you have a theory about who this person on the water could be, or just want to talk about how terrifying the never been sick reveal is, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you're thinking. Okay, predictions for next time.
All right, I got this. Prediction 1. The island they find is a winter island, the ultimate cruel irony. Nami is burning up with a raging fever, and they land in a frozen wasteland where the cold itself is a constant danger. It just feels like that brand of dramatic, thematic storytelling.
That's a good one. For my first, I'll say the man Zoro saw is not an enemy, not initially. He's a sentry or a scout for the next island, and he's going to guide them there, but there will be a condition. He'll be wary of pirates, and they'll have to prove they're not a threat before he helps them. It will be their first test on this new island.
I like that. Okay, prediction 2. The doctor on the island is a total recluse, a hermit. They're going to hear tales of a miracle worker, but they'll find out that person lives at the top of an impossibly tall mountain or deep in a dangerous forest. They're going to have to climb a mountain or solve a riddle or fight something to even get an audience with them. The cure won't be easy to get.
Building on that, for my second prediction, the island is under the control of a tyrant, a selfish king or a pirate who has taken over, and this tyrant has hoarded all the medical resources for himself. The only good doctor on the island is either in hiding, in prison, or forced to work exclusively for the villain. The crew will have to liberate the island to save Nami. It turns their personal quest into a classic Straw Hat adventure.
That's absolutely what's going to happen. You know it. Last one for me, and this is a big one. Super long shot prediction. This arc's main villain will have a devil fruit that's related to sickness or plagues, a disease-based power. It'll make Nami's condition even worse upon arrival and turn the whole island into a ticking biological time bomb they have to defuse.
A chilling thought. My final prediction is a bit more grounded. The next part will open with the man on the water directly addressing the Going Merry. He won't attack, he'll just stare at them, and his first words will be something cryptic and unsettling, like, "Are you here for the witch?" referring to the island's doctor, immediately framing them as an outcast and adding another layer of complication to their quest.
Ooh, I like that. The witch. That sounds exactly right. Well, no matter what happens, it's clear things are not getting any simpler for the Straw Hats.
They never do. That's why we love it.
That you got right. That's all the time we have for this week. A huge thanks for tuning in. Be sure to join us next time as we continue our journey through the Grand Line.
Until then, may your winds be favorable and your course be true.
Keep sailing.